you ever been in a situation where you are working on a computer remotely, you go to restart it, and instead of clicking the restart button, you want to accidentally click the shutdown button? Microcomputers have some cool kind of vPro Intel active management options that you can set in the BIOS to be able to help with that as well. So, oh no, I just shut that down. How do I get that back up? So what I do is I go to another machine on that network. There are options to do this remotely. In this video, I'm specifically pointing to, okay, I have another machine I could temporarily use to wake up this other machine, and then I can let the other machine go while I go work on the machine that I want. So in this scenario, I have the IP address, I have the port number, the BIOS settings are already in place. I'm going to log in. Now I can access the system. I'm going to go under System, Power On, Normal Boot, and we'll send command. And now that we sent that command, the Dell system is booting right back up. So in this video, we'll check out some BIOS settings, all that it takes to configure and get that set up. This is the OptiPlex 77 micro, kind of small form factor units. Basically, it fits into kind of the palm of my hand. We deploy these to clients that are going kind of full cloud. They don't have dedicated servers, and even clients that have multiple locations where they have site-to-site VPNs, and they might not have servers at every location. This gives us kind of a cheap, low-cost device, usually ones that are being retired and we're just refurbing for this purpose. It has wireless capabilities, so we can even test wireless on them along with being wired. And we're going to reboot it, go through the BIOS settings that we kind of introed in the beginning of the video, and just kind of show you the settings to apply to help keep these systems online. For this system, I am doing the F12 key, and I have a keyboard plugged in directly to it, and as it's sitting right next to me. So preparing the one-time boot menu. Alright, so there's two options here. So first we're going to go into the BIOS, and then we will go into this Intel Management BIOS extension. So BIOS setup. All right, all the general settings here. I mean, I'm pretty much going to go down to power management. So I'm going to skim through some of these just so that you can kind of see. But all of these are defaults. I mean, you can make sure the time is set correctly, system info. I'm just going to kind of skip through. I mean, if you're doing Linux, you'd want to turn the RAID off, probably set it to the AHCI. But I'm just going to skim through some of these just so you can see. Feel free to pause the video as you see fit. Video. Security, you can set passwords here if you want to lock down the system from people changing the BIOS settings. And some other options there. Secure boot, that I'm pretty sure is all the defaults, nothing changed. Software guard extension, multi-core stuff, Thunderbolt. Okay, so under the power management, this is the first setting that I changed to power on, because these systems will typically be in a server room or network closet where they won't always have a monitor plugged into them. So it is, I want to make sure that the state is going to be on. If power is lost, it's plugged into a UPS. It's always going to be powered on from there. Enable Intel speed shift. That should be a default. The auto on is more just another extra setting to apply if the system happened to be off, and it would just do a self check at 5 a.m. to make sure that it's on every day at 5 a.m. as a just in case. Deep sleep control is disabled. USB wake support. Wake on LAN. So wake on LAN obviously is another setting to apply because you want to be able to try to push things with the tools that we have. Things like Screen Connect from ConnectWise, where you can, or even just on the network, where you can do a scan of the network using even like advanced IP scanner and try to push a wake command to it. Just another way to try to wake the machine, and it's worth enabling that for sure. Block sleep, I'm pretty sure is a default, and that is checked. And then the post behavior, I'm pretty sure most of these are defaults. I mean, some of these could be customizable if you want to enable numlock or keyboard. Just kind of skimming through some of these. So I did set this to continue on warnings and errors, because the idea is I don't want the system to try to boot and then get stuck waiting for some kind of input. But the last note that it mentions there, errors deemed critical to the operation of the system hardware will always halt the system. So it will still protect itself and obviously not come online if there's something critical. But if there is a minor error that it's detecting, it will at least still boot up and you can still connect to it from there. All right, so this is where it gets into the AMT settings. This is the active management technology settings. So we are obviously enabling that there. USB provisioning we don't really need. I enabled the hotkeys as well. I think that was a default. So that's the first enablement there. Virtualization support, I'm pretty sure these are all default. Trusted, I think, was not checked. So again, default settings. Wireless, I believe you could turn off the Bluetooth if you don't want anyone trying to do anything Bluetooth related to it, but I left those as defaults. These are all just basic information on the system tags and recovery. No maintenance options that I need to worry about there. System logs. ASPM, that's just auto. And some other base settings. All right, so with those, I mean, the main settings are going to be the wake on LAN, the make sure it's on at like 5 a.m. every day, the power on as like the last power state, and then the obvious one on the manageability, making sure that the AMT capabilities is enabled. And then once we go through, you do through all those BIOS settings, we can go ahead and exit. And then we will do an F12. You can do a Control P to get into the next BIOS settings, but it's just easier in this example for this micro. I'm just going to spam the F12 key again. We'll get back to that base kind of boot screen. And now we want to go down to the Management Engine BIOS extension for the MEB. All right, so when you first log into this, it's going to prompt you for a password. The password is just admin, ADMIN, all lowercase, and then it will prompt you to change it. I already went through that process, so I'm going to just sign in with the password I set. All right, so I'm in. Obviously, the first settings, I mean, it will prompt you to change it. You could come in here to change it yourself as well. The first setting we would want to change is making sure that this is enabled. And then we go down to the Intel AMT configuration. Also here, the manageability feature selection, we want to make sure that's enabled. There's some default settings here for if you do want to do full like KVM features, and that's the MeshCommander that I showed a little image of on the screen in the intro. We'll show some examples of how that tool works as well. But all three of those are enabled. The user consent is critical because, again, in my scenario, I'm not going to have someone, we're using this as like a test machine to be able to remote in whenever, test things out on the network. We're actually installing like certain tools on the system and using it as a collector, you could call it, to be able to scan the network through some software that we acquired recently. So we want to make sure that we're not booting or being prompted for some kind of authorization, and we can just connect right in. And again, assuming you have a secure password that you had set on this system, because the password you set here will be the same password that you're logging into the browser with that I showed in the intro of the video as well. So the KVM for set to none, and then the opt-in configuration for remote IT is disabled. And then this should not force a code to be authorized from the end user to be able to have you access through the MeshCommander software as an example. Password policy anytime is fine. The network setup. I didn't set any host name. I mean, ideally, if you know the system's name or the IP address, you can find the system. You could set a host name here to be able to look up the system, but those settings I'm pretty sure are all the defaults there. I have this set for DHCP. You can definitely change this to static. The only caveat is that you do want to be careful that once you set it to static and you deploy it to the system or the environment, if that environment changes IP addresses in any way, then you will lose access to the system. So I'm leaning towards DHCP, and I'll just browse to find the computer. I could do an IP scan. I have notes in regards to our documentation as to what the IP is, the name of the system, the serial number, and we have our remote tools connected to it as well. So we have multiple ways to verify what system is at what client office, and we can find it without too much worry there. So you can change that setting as what fits best for you. So the network setup and the unconfigured network access, we did run into a situation here where there's a menu there's an option that's not showing. You have to get it to show. So I don't know if it defaults to the unprovision, but if you change this to full, it will take a moment, and I'll say yes. It will take a moment for the system to load, and then once it goes through this loading screen, under network setup, it will show an option to activate. So you do need to make sure that you activate it and then leave it on full. I had it working on partial. I don't honestly know the difference between the two. I might try to look it up, and I can splash something on the screen to better describe what the full and partial unprovisioned mean. But I changed it to full. It shows this activate network access, and I'm going to say yes to that as well. And then it does go away, so you don't see that option. So I just wanted to really flag that as a part of the screen that doesn't show unless you actually trigger that kind of unconfigured network access. And you might, if it shows full, you might have to change it to partial and vice versa just to get that activate to show, and then you should be good. And I'll show some examples of what you might run into if you don't do that activate part. All right, and then the remote configure provisioning mode, just PKI. I think it's the only option anyway. Provisioning record is not prevented, but that doesn't matter. No, nothing needed there. Power options. I just defaulted it to the desktop SO and the S3, S4, and 5. And then the idle timeout, I'll probably put it to like 15, give it a little bit more time. Looks like that saved. There isn't a apply setting, which was interesting. So once you exit out, you could boot back into this just to verify that the settings did apply. But I'm going to back out now. We'll say yes. And we'll let the system boot up. So the microcomputer is booted up. I confirm the IP address. We'll flip back over to the other scene, other device. So the MeshCommander tool, when you can do more keyboard and mouse pass-through, you could display the actual screen of the device remotely or on the same kind of local network. Whereas the browser option is going to be more limited as to what you're doing. You can kind of do a power cycle, boot it up, and things like that, see information about the system, and then the MeshCommander tool will actually give you like the KVM features for keyboard, mouse, and display. So we'll go ahead and sign back into this system here. Let's do a new tab here since this seems to be stale. All right, so we'll do 192.168. Go ahead and log in. All right, we're going to go ahead do incognito. All right, we're going to go ahead and log in here. Prompting us to sign in. Admin. And the username will always be admin as the default. And then whatever password you set on the system. And it's admin by default as well. But once you change it, log in with the password that you changed. And then under system, so as you saw there, it did get a little stuck in caching, and because I had rebooted the system a couple times, so I did have to just do it incognito mode just to get it out of that kind of stuck authentication where it just wasn't allowing me to go to other options. So the remote control option here, again, it's very basic, just kind of power cycling, graceful shutdown, and network settings, power policies. So there are settings from the BIOS that we can actually tweak here now that we have access to the system, and that can be very useful, especially even system logs and being able to see if there's any errors or any issues with the system. User accounts, wireless, networking, so you could even set it to a static here. So once the system gets on site, then you decide to choose the static settings, verifying that you can connect to it and everything. And there's some like disk information, memory information, processor, so all useful information. A lot of our remote tools will have that information anyway. So the only thing that we're really looking for is being able to potentially see the event logs, which is helpful, but also do like a power cycle if we had to, or even wake it up. Now with the MeshCommander, I'll maximize this. We can add a computer, and with the friendly name, you could make any name you want for this example. And then the host name, I was trying to connect to it by the computer's name, but it wasn't resolving. I don't know if it may be looking for like the fully qualified name, or looking back at that BIOS setting, it may be looking for you putting a name in the BIOS as a host name, and then that's what it's looking for here. So you can play around with that, set a host name on the BIOS side, and then be able to connect to just the name of the system, which might be easier to remember than having to do IPs based off DHCP and stuff like that. So for here, I'm just going to stick to the IP address. And I do actually already have this system, so we'll just go ahead and edit this one. Not that one. This one. So it's the 136 address, admin, and then again, that same password that you were forced to change when logging in through the BIOS settings. And you hit OK. The green icon will show that it's offline or online. This one is the example one that's showing red as offline. And I'll go ahead and connect. zoom in a little bit here. Okay, so a lot of these screens are going to be very similar to what we just saw in the web browser version. You just have more functionality in regards to what you can do. So just hardware information. Again, the event logs are going to be the same. User account stuff will be pretty similar, but you could add another one if you wanted to. Wake alarms and other things. So, but the real benefit here is the connect screen here. Now, without changing those KVM BIOS settings, that's where you would run into an issue, because they would prompt on the screen. And again, if these systems are not plugged into monitors, and it can be a little hard to be able to get a consent because it's just sitting in a network closet, not hooked up to any kind of monitor. So here, if we say connect, now because we made those changes, it's going to put us right in. And we connect right to that system. I'll kind of adjust the screen a little bit here. Scope this back down to fit. So now that we connect, it puts us right in. I'll go ahead and disconnect and then connect, and that puts us right into the same screen that we were at. And now the keyboard and mouse will function. So if I flip back to the machine, this is the machine that I'm on, and you can see that it actually gives me a border around, emphasizing that someone is connected. So it's kind of alerting the user that someone is connected to the machine. So I'll go ahead and bring up a notepad, write test, flip back to the other system, and I can see that. And my keyboard and mouse will pass through. And I can write test from this side as well. So this is a nice way as kind of, again, a backup way to connect to a system if you needed to. But you're going to have all those other BIOS settings to really shine in regards to keeping the system online. And here I can do a power action. And let's just do... Let's do a power down. So let that system fully power down. So it's even indicating that the remote computer is not powered on. So because I have this system next to me, I can hold this up here. So get that right there. So there's no light indicating on the power button there. So then if I go up to power actions, and I'll even do this from the browser side, I'll go to, okay, so I do need to authenticate again. Okay, so I authenticated again. We'll go to remote control, and I'm going to say turn on device, and we're going to say send command. So that command is going to send. I will confirm okay there. So that command will send, and then you can see almost right away that lit up. And even on this side, it took away that message. I don't know if it's going to show the BIOS settings from... You won't be able to display the BIOS pass-through. So I can see this system booting up still. It's at the Dell screen. So that guy won't connect until it's up, which makes sense because it won't be able to pass the things through until it's fully up. But as you can see, if I flip back to here, like almost instantly this came up. Almost instantly this came up once it got to the full boot screen on the other side. So yeah, overall this is just a video to show, obviously this isn't specific to just the micro OptiPlex 77s. This can be applied to laptops, desktops, kind of across the board, assuming they support this functionality. And it kind of acts as similar to like an iDRAC to a host server, where an iDRAC dedicated network card, like separating it. So similarities, but a little different. and a nice way for us to be able to keep these micros online as machines for us to test and be able to work with without interrupting users throughout their day. Hey, that's it for this video. I hope that some of the BIOS settings that we showed can help you set up some computers to be able to test with and be able to connect to from like an IT perspective, and even just in general. I mean, these are definitely cool settings to look at for other systems across the board, for kind of business laptops and desktops, like even conference room computers that might be sitting at clients' offices, to be able to connect to them remotely as needed. Stay tuned for some more videos coming along that I'll be posting, and some other shorts that I'll be sending out as well. Thank you.